Welcome to another Writer Showcase, everybody. It's going to be an interesting week this week. I'm quite excited. Anyway, let's get started. Let me see. We are now live. Great. All right, let me bring in my guests really quick. First off, let's go with Yuri.
What we two can do, you and me and you. Buck yourself up, don't look so sad. In my master plan.
This is dumb!
Tell me
It can't be for real! It can't be! No movie could possibly be this stupid! It has to be a dream sequence or...
Butterflies and...
What the hell am I even looking at?
Hello.
So, alrighty, let's bring in the rest. Let's start with old friend of the channel, Dr. Crow.
Hello.
How's life?
Living.
Are you two still living? One of the best movies of all time. I love The Grinch. Alrighty, let's bring in the rest. Guest entrances.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. And I'm tempted to do the sausage intro, but since he asked for it, I will not do the sausage intro. So I'll just do this.
Yes, the sausage intro is the real reason why Danny burnt down King's Landing.
Clearly.
I can't really blame her either.
At least it's a better motivation.
Valerian, would you like some sausage? Valerian,
Shut
would
up
you like
and
some
die,
sausage?
Sweeney. All right, enough of that. You have shown remarkable restraint, though, for the last several months, so to give you that.
Sorry.
At this point, I should probably cuss you out or something. So,
I am sorry. I couldn't resist.
so leap you go to hell like me. Just like there. How was that? Was that violent enough?
Fair enough. Yeah, let's go with that.
Okay.
So, I believe that you have the Valerian has a time constraint of dinner. So, do you want to go first, or shall we have Dr. Crow or cameraman go first?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I go do a short one first, and then move on. Unless someone else has a screaming time constraint. They're all muted, so I don't know. I guess they don't.
All right. You can go.
I don't have any sort of constraint.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's go with the Valerian first then.
Okay. This is a bit of an experiment, so we'll see what happens. I tried writing a sort of romantic scene. I'm not very adept at those, so I tried to lampshade the awkwardness, and we'll see if I've succeeded or if it's just complete cringe. We'll see what happens. Oh, this is from the serious novel, by the way. So, oh dear, I suppose I should give a brief recap of that. God. Okay, they're in this empire, this imaginary empire that doesn't exist. The emperor, well, of course, it's imaginary, it doesn't exist by definition. The emperor was lusting after a couple of the characters. Their parents weren't ready to go along with it, so the emperor killed the parents. So there's a state of hostility. So Margaret and Barama are, and also a chap named Muku, are protagonists. The bad guy is the Emperor Ekwekwe, and there are other assorted bad guys as well. So let's see what happens. Oh, I should probably add that Barama is Margaret's cousin. So, oh, and Adri is Margaret's sister because she's coming up in this scene. Okay. Adri had just fed a little plum to her palham, or guardian spirits, as she had done every day for as long as she could remember, and was sitting in the study with her pet Moraishuru on her lap, reading a florilegium of virtuous precepts for young ladies, and occasionally interrupting her study to look out the window at the Dathlon River, when she heard the gentle beating of the drum outside her apartments. "Who is there?" she asked. Her maid Varaine's voice answered, "Great One Barama requests leave to speak to my lady." "Great One will honor me," replied Adri by way of invitation. Had she meant to decline, she would, of course, have said, "Great One honors me beyond my desert," or "Great One honors me far too much." No well-bred young lady ever actually refused anything. Well, Margaret did, but she was Margaret. Barama entered diffidently, whilst Varaine stood behind the doorway. Barama and Adri, they haven't said much, if anything, about their courtship, because nothing much is said about it in the early sources, which don't have a lot that we would consider romantic. Love is generally mentioned at length in the literature of the time only when it is tragic, or if the couple are already married. Needless to say, later works treat the subject in coruscating and occasionally lurid length, but the quality of the writing is dubious, and its accuracy even more dubious. In reality, it appears that the courtship was an awkward business, and didn't come more or less into the open until rather later. Upon entering, Barama made a sweeping bow in the Turanian fashion and said, "The splendor of Ishtaka, Ru, and Jamarad is reflected in the blossom of your countenance." He had been up all night coming up with that one, and then trying to translate it into his very imperfect Kalaman. No one would ever confuse Barama with the great Turanian playwright Mijarwi, or even with his Sandoranian imitators. Adri blushed, curtsied beautifully despite her plumpness, and replied, "Great One graces me with supernal grace, whereof this lowly servant is most unworthy." Women had it easier than men in the sense that they weren't expected to come up with flowery compliments. If anything, would have been considered unladylike. Less is more, and if you can blush, so much the better. Adri had an advantage here and actually really did blush. Some women, in these circumstances, had to quickly apply rouge, while the chap, if he was gallant, pretended not to notice. Barama was silent for a moment, shuffled, blushed, tried to straighten his hair, bowed again while almost tripping, and finally blurted out, "Would you like to get married?" He wished women had to propose instead of the other way around. Being male was a lot of work. And he shouldn't have blushed either, he knew. Men never blushed. All right. Adri stopped and blushed again, threw up her hands helplessly, blushed a third time, and clasped her hands to keep from gesticulating. "I mean..." Although unworthy of Great One's overwhelming grace, this lowly servant dare not refuse it. She curtsied again 3 times, this time even more beautifully. But I must complete my mourning period, so Great One may ask Lady Margaret's permission in 1 month. She's legally my mother now. Then we can get engaged and all that, assuming we don't all get killed, We don't all get killed. Let Great One ask this servant's gracious foster mother, the Lady Margaret, when my mourning for my gracious parents has been fulfilled, if Sacred Nine grant us to live so long. We won't all get killed, said Barama. My lady graces me with great grace, or is it abundantly? I ought to have checked. I haven't read my etiquette book in ages. Oh, I need to write you a proposal poem. That's the custom among my people. Why had he forgot to oil his hair? It kept being obstinately curly. Adrib curtsied, lowered her head, and managed somehow to avoid blushing unduly. Too much blushing was almost as bad as too little, and might make one look like a strumpet. A lovely custom, she said, but I cannot receive it until after Margaret, my gracious foster mother, gives permission. It wouldn't be seemly. Barama threw back his head in assent and bowed. You speak wisely. My lady. Until then I won't see you, my lady, without a chaperone. That wouldn't be seemly either. Half a moment. That is well, said Adri. Great One is wise. Now this lowly servant prays that Great One withdraw, for his honor and mine. She curtsied 9 times, each curtsy a song in motion. Engagements involved a lot of curtsying, and the standards were high. Barama, for his part, bowed 9 times, each bow more sweeping than the last, and said, As my lady wills. The maid Varain had already withdrawn a safe distance to give him room to exit decorously. He then left the room backwards with his head lowered in respect. This dialogue is stilted, said the reader. Well, yes, that's how aristocrats of the opposite sex talked to each other in those days. Both young women had read, or heard read, etiquette books hundreds of pages long before being allowed into society. Especially Adri, who had memorized 81 polite expressions by the age of 6. If anything, this conversation was unusually informal and would have been considered downright shocking in some circles. And that's that.
Cute.
At least it's more amusing than I remembered it being.
I dug the names. I can't remember them all now, but the names were cool, and I like just like the kind of the focus on this very insular sort of way of life.
Good. Yeah, I do work on the names. They're all either mean something in the language or else have a cultural reference or both.
Boramus, I think, is the one name that kept making me think of Rama/Brahma.
Yeah, Barama.
Baromo, yeah. It makes me think of both Brahma and Rama.
There actually is a name Rama too. But that's like a minor character.
Yeah.
Very nice indeed.
So the meta bit, so it's not completely cringe, or is just cringe enough?
I thought it was fine. I didn't mind it.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Like the whole just the way you describe the culture is neat. I find it such a lovely culture.
Thank you. I try to yeah, because the world building is an important part of it.
Right.
Gotcha.
I thought that was pretty good.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's definitely an element. So it is interesting that there's a touch of formality through everything, which I
Yeah.
guess works.
Yeah, because they're very they're a fairly high level of aristocrats, and if you're of the opposite sex and you're an aristocrat, then the rules are like really, really strict as to how you should act. Of course, at the court has got really decadent by run by the Emperor Kwekwe, so that might not be quite so far. Or the formality would be different because it would be how great the Emperor is. But this is in the provinces where they're not so, where they're more conservative in that respect.
Quick question: did you come up with the name of Quay Quay because it sounds similar to Cray Cray?
No, we didn't. I don't think we said cray cray back in those days. but it works. We can start calling him a cray cray from now on.
Crazy.
He's definitely crazy for you.
Intriguing. Alrighty.
I think we might want to go next because I have something.
Okay. Alright.
If not, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Alrighty, you can go first then.
Okay, so this is more of a comedic thing that I wrote back.
Did you break up?
Yeah, it broke up.
Hello?
Yeah, you're back in.
Okay. Okay, so this is mostly meant to be a funny thing that I wrote a few years ago. You ready to hear it?
Yep.
Okay, so this one is called The Haunted Hyper-Realistic Lost Episode Sonic Game. You hear me?
Interesting. Yep. I'm intrigued, to say the least, to see how this turns out.
Okay. For as long as I can remember, I've always been a fan of Sonic the Hedgehog. Ever since I was 3, I've been creating Sonic OCs and working on my Tumblr Sonic blog. Shadow is my favorite because he's so edgy and deep. One day I was walking down the street and I find a creepy yard sale ran by a dirty old man with blood on his hands. Despite this, I thought it looked normal and decided to buy something. One of the things he was selling was an old disc for Sonic 06, the greatest game of all time in the history of forever. Despite having a pentagram drawn on it, I bought it anyway. Along with the game, I found an instruction guide with one sentence: burn this disc or you will suffer a fate worse than death. But I ignored it because of curiosity of something. After installing it in my Xbox 360, the game started, but for some reason, it wasn't actually the actual game. It was a lost episode of SpongeBob SquarePants, my favorite cartoon of all time. Even though I was disappointed about not playing Sonic 06, but I thought this lost episode would be fun. During the SpongeBob intro, however, that all changed when the intro showed terrifying SpongeBob image, but with bloody tears coming out of his eyes. However, unlike most cartoon blood, the blood in this intro was hyper realistic. For some reason, SpongeBob was going around killing his friends, including Patrick, Squidward, Sandy, Mr. Krabs, Plankton, Gary the Snail, and everyone else. After the while, he was chanting to Satan for power. Then suddenly a bloody SpongeBob plushie lunged out of my TV screen at me. It was the most terrifying creature I've ever seen in my life, and it destroyed my faith in humanity. Once this was over, I will want to die. However, the SpongeBob plushie quickly transformed into a Sonic plushie, revealing itself to be the Demon X from Sonic.exe. Then I died. The end. And that's it.
Was there any punctuation in that?
Like, I literally read it because the idea is that, so this is meant to be a parody of like bad creepypastas. And so basically,
All
I wrote it.
creepypastas.
I wrote it specifically without editing it. So I made sure to keep every typo in there and every. That's why it probably sounded weird because I wrote it specifically to not have good grammar because pastas all mostly have really bad writing.
So how did it end again? I think I missed the ending.
Yes, yeah. So a SpongeBob plushie turned into the bad guy from Sonic.exe and killed him.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
What?
He turned, yeah. So
That's what you get for buying stuff with pentagrams on it.
yeah, this is meant to, and like as a kid, I used to read a lot of creepypastas, and like like so I decided to just write and so I just decided to just write something that would just be take the piss out of most of them.
I'm sorry, what was that word? Pasta? Like as in
Creepy
No,
pasta.
It's it's a thing that was popular years like maybe longer ago.
2008.
Yeah. Basically, it means like creepy internet stories that were copied and pasted around the internet. Some of them, and most of them were pretty bad.
Like 90% of them are really bad.
Yeah, and
I
I read,
remember that, but I don't. Okay, cool.
and way back when I was little, I read a lot of them. So I decided. So this story is basically, you know what? And this is mostly a parody of a lot of the video game and TV show creepypastas. Like there's stuff like there's Sonic. So one of them is Sonic.exe, which is a Sonic creepypasta about a haunted Sonic game possessed by a demon or something. It's dumb.
Oh, that's sort of like what you call that thing? Dragon Blasters.
Yeah, so I
Dragon Blasters is a work of art.
I just decided to basically throw my post story to this showcase.
Well, to offer a tepid defense of myself, Dragon Blaster is not based on anything.
Oh, sorry. Did that sound like a vicious attack?
I thought it was based
No.
on a true story.
Wait, have you been possessed? Wait, vicious attacks. Have you been vicious personal attacks? Have you been possessed by the ghost of Brie Larson?
Well, I didn't know who that is, but maybe.
She's famous for asking when reading her frequently asked questions about Brie Larson. She said, "Is that like a personal attack or something?"
She plays Marvel in the Marvel movies.
Which is probably why Valerian has never seen her.
Oh, probably. Yeah, that's probably what that would explain it. Yes.
She's just your typical stuck-up movie actress.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, she's kind of a bimbo, and her coworkers hate her, by all accounts.
Hello? Did I cut out there?
Someone did.
Yes.
Very briefly.
Okay, so yeah, I used to be scared of a lot of bad creepypastas, but now as an adult, I can look back on them and say, "Wow, this was really dumb. Why was I scared of this?" That's why I wrote this.
Maybe they were so stupid that the quality of writing terrified you.
Maybe that was the reason. It's totally not why, because I was a dumb kid who was really scared easily.
Well, I was scared of Bartholomew and the Oobleck, so I can't really talk.
That one is actually kind of creepy. That one actually, I would say, is actually fairly creepy.
Yeah, that one terrified me when I was like 5 years old.
So yeah, I might look for so that's basically what I have. It's pretty short, but it is something I have since I'm still writing some stuff for the next chapter of my book.
Nice. Nice. I like it. Yeah, it definitely captures a lot of the ideas of a creepypasta type thing.
And also, to anyone who hasn't read Sonic.exe, the killer Sonic plushie is actually a thing from that story. The monster takes the form of a plushie and kills the main character at the end. That's actually what happens in the original story. It's really stupid. It's not even a doll. It's described as a plushie.
That's actually kind of hilarious.
Plushie,
Yeah.
like as in plushie toy, as in plush Cthulhu. That
Yeah,
kind of
like it's literally described as like a plush. It's like a plushie. Yeah, so the story expects you to be scared of a bloody Sonic plushie.
Which, considering Five Nights at Freddy's is a thing,
It predates.
It really
or,
wants.
or a
really-
Chucky, isn't it?
Kind of Chucky.
I'm going to have
it-
nightmares.
Well, I mean, the reason why Chucky works is because he's going after a kid.
Yeah, and plus Chucky wasn't a plushie. He was like actually like Chucky wasn't a plush doll. He was like a more of a
Articulated.
like less of a he wasn't a plushie doll. He was like a more hardened physical doll. So it actually sort of works there. Really, yeah. Do you get what I
Also,
mean?
his actor was really great.
Brad Dourif is a great voice actor. He's the guy who did Chucky, right?
Yeah, Grima Wormtongue himself.
Actor, yep.
Yeah. Yeah, man, he's a funny guy. I think one of my favorite stories is him talking about how apparently his girlfriend got incredibly pissed that he had to shave his eyebrows for Lord of the Rings. She was like, I hate them.
This is a revolting moment in the story.
Yeah, it's freaking hilarious. I love it. Okay. So I believe that it is our good friend Dr. Crow's turn.
All right, so just to let you know, I've been writing comics, and we finally got a rather large one done. This one's a 6-pager. So here it is. This is
That's pretty. That's very pretty.
so the artist for this is David Aragon. He writes his own comic called Abnormal Lions. I highly suggest go check that out. This one here.
Good.
I'm sorry.
I've read that. I've read his comic. It's good.
Yes. This is All American Red Squirrel mini adventure number 1. So our opening scene here is opening up on a jewelry store with an alarm going off. We have Red Squirrel sitting up on top of light pole. That jewelry store is being robbed. Kicks in the door. Stop right there, evildoer. Oops. Technical difficulties. She's grabbed. And we meet our foe, Girlrilla. Gorilla. Gorilla, did you do something with your hair? Gorilla lets out a vicious roar. Ugh. Everything about robbing a dentist. He might have toothpaste. Thrown out a window. On to page 2. Gray Squirrel picks herself up. Note to self: don't insult a monkey when she has you in a death grip. Gorilla looms over Red Squirrel, ready to smash her into the pavement. Red Squirrel dodges. Using her acrobatic skills and small size, she keeps dodging. Missed me. What's the matter? Am I driving you bananas? Red Squirrel dodges another punch that Gorilla brings down a light pole on her own head. Red Squirrel, maybe that will knock some sense into ya. Whack! and over the fence into a construction site. Gorilla reaches down, grabbing the bag of jewels she's trying to steal. Red Squirrel jumping back up over the fence. Oh, no, you don't. The toss of a box of nails she picked up, book, manages to stop Gorilla by throwing them into her foot. Red Squirrel's letting out a laugh. That should drive the point home. More angry faces. Catch me if you can, banana breath. The chase is on. Red Squirrel leads Gorilla up up the construction site. She's mad, but I can use that blind rage. Up and across the platform she goes. Gorilla's large sides causes it to shake. Whoa. Golly gee, it looks like you got me cornered. Psych! And down Gorilla falls into a dumpster. Gorilla is apprehended. Thank you, Red Squirrel. We'll make sure the jewels get back to the jewelry store. No problem, officer. And no more monkey business from you. And off they take Gorilla. And once again, the day is saved thanks to the all-American Red Squirrel.
I like it.
I like the two main characters the most.
Yeah. Is she based off Squirrel Girl? More of a hatred.
Two main characters.
Red Squirrel and Gorilla.
I see a Squirrel Girl and versus Gorilla Grodd in there, but slightly altered. But
Red
maybe
Squirrel
that's just
has only slight bases from Red Squirrel. Not Red Squirrel, Squirrel Girl. And it's more or less that how much I hate that character.
Oh yeah, it may be just me, but I hate lame characters that I perceive as lame. And Squirrel Girl's on that
she's
list.
meant to be a parody character that's like kind of a joke on the overpowered superhero.
Guys, you're missing the point. Boobies.
But recently, with Squirrel Girl,
enlightened.
they've really gone out of their way to try to make her just as unpleasant and ugly as possible. She's now like some 300-pound character, so it's like I want to make an actual hero with this gimmick, and actually have her do heroing instead of whatever it is this baking stuff is. So I also took a combination of just a general tiredness of the dark, gritty superhero. I wanted to take things back towards the Silver Age where things were more lighthearted, things are fun, the heroes are actually saving people, and it's not just, what if Superman was a jerk?
There's a whole website about Superman being a jerk.
Super dickery. That's when they took a lot of the weird stuff that was happening in the 50s and 60s from comics because just poor writing. But no, I mean more like the modern days, things like The Boys.
Omni-Man, Invincible.
Invincible does it well.
Yeah.
I don't know much about the TV show Boys, but the comic was awful.
The TV show is one of the only good shows they have going. Like, it's good. It's just well done.
And and if you want to talk about evil Superman, don't forget Injustice.
Yes, especially Injustice. It's just I'm just so sick of seeing what if the superheroes were the bad guys? What if they were,
what if superheroes were assholes?
Yeah, what if they were like real people? And it's like they're superheroes. Okay, first off, the dude's flying. Well, there's a quote from a skit Dorm, a YouTube channel called Dorm Monster did, where they kind of go into this, and one of the characters is telling his superhuman roommates, he goes, "You're not mutants or gifted or anomalies. You're superheroes. Put on some brightly colored spandex. yell catchphrases and criminals. It's way more entertaining to see somebody dressed like an American flag punch a dude in a ski mask. People would prefer that, actually. And then the end of the skit, one of the superheroes he talks to can spontaneously summon balloons. Is sitting there in a pile of balloons going, I'm a monster. And it just kind of shows just how goofy it's gotten.
And don't forget how the DCEU started off.
Yeah.
I love the Gorilla Lady's hat.
Yes, gorilla. I just wanted to. It literally is just the pun of girl rilla.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, and it works.
Is Dr. Crow secretly a furry? Tune in next showcase to find out.
More like a featherweight, I thought.
He's not. We know definitively Dr. Crow is not a furry.
I am not a furry.
Yet. Keep going down this road, though, brother. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure that crows take offense at being called furries.
Like that tail right there. You know that's doing something for you.
It's really hot. Whoops, sorry.
And it sounds more like you guys have things to work out yourselves.
Did you do something with your hair? You need to see a dentist. Is there a story about how they turned into Squirrel Girl and Gorilla, respectively?
Well, Gorilla is just an intelligent gorilla, the intelligent gorilla trope. As for Red Squirrel, she's just born with the powers. There is backstory. So Red Squirrel's big motivation is that her father before her was a superhero. He was the Fantastic Fox Squirrel, and he died of a mysterious cause in such a way that it portrayed him as a supervillain all along. She doesn't buy it one bit, so she's trying to pick up where he left off 10 years later after this mindset has already been hard baked in. So she's going around the city trying to just be a good hero. And that's her entire motivation. I just want to be a superhero. Like there's no need. And it's just like I look at the things like people do. It's like everybody's got to have a dark and drab backstory and everything sucks. It's like, no, being a superhero is awesome. I'm able to leap tall buildings. I can climb up sides of buildings. I can punch through a brick wall. This is amazing. And I get to help people. That's what being a superhero is about. It's just like, I want to be awesome.
Lift was awesome. Whoops, sorry. That was a Stormlight reference. Sorry.
I like Lift.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's cool.
I don't think I tried to read the book that's all about her though, and I just can't. Like Lift is good in doses.
I've never read the book that's all about just her.
Yeah, no, I tried. It's like just give me the full books.
That's one of the things that makes it hard for me to get through Sanderson's work sometimes. She's like, oh, this is depressing.
So what is depressing?
It's just like everything, especially what's happening with Cal. It's like, this is just downright depressing. Like, this all sucks. Like,
Way of Kings is so good.
I can't wait to hear your thoughts on George R.R. Martin or Joe Abercrombie.
I can't. I'm so sick of dark fantasy and grim dark fantasy and just grim. It's like, no, I can't. I want my bright colors, please. I want my hopeful messaging and everything. Good guys win. I miss it.
Actual wholesome stuff, you mean?
Actual wholesome stuff. It's enough of the what if the heroes were the bad guys too? It's fine. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm not saying it's awful. I'm definitely not saying it's badly written. It's actually really amazingly written. I'm just sick of it. All right, I want a different flavor.
It's basically we've been served dark chocolate for so long that we'd like to have Superman ice cream, more Play-Doh ice cream for a change.
Frankly, I think this. I know that there was some stuff before it that predate, but like. I feel like this most like the thing that that started this whole grimdark superhero trend was probably Watchmen.
Yes.
And
good old Alan Moore.
there's nothing wrong with. I don't think there's because I don't hate Watchmen. Like I don't have anything against Alan Moore, but I feel like that it sort of started trends for superhero media that have not really been to its favor.
Well, Alan Moore is a bit of a Satanist, so it's like
he's not a Satanist. He's
not exactly. I
good.
said a bit of, not exactly, right? He's a mystic, and it's not a
Yeah,
Christ.
he's a
Pretty sure he
pagan
worships
mystic.
some kind of snake statue or something. I don't know.
Yeah, which he made up. It's all very postmodern.
Alan Moore is nuts.
Yeah, he I love the jokes about. I love making fun of Alan Moore's paganism, where it's just like
He's
it is
an amazing
crazy.
writer, but I wouldn't listen to him on anything else.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite jokes about Alan Moore is that when he talks about they haven't ruined my books; they're still on the shelf.
Yeah.
And he then proceeded to drink the blood of a baby giraffe and flew out the window, spouting fire out of his anus.
Oh, I thought it was Dolinar.
Yeah, like I said, you don't listen to Alan Moore about anything else. Like, he's a good writer, but sometimes he doesn't even realize what he's doing. Like, take the character of Rorschach from Watchmen. So many people love Rorschach, but he gets so confused about it because Rorschach is supposed to be the villain. You're not supposed to like Rorschach, and he doesn't understand why.
Rorschach's the only one with like honor.
Rorschach's the only one with morals.
Yeah, Rorschach's the best character.
Rorschach's the only one who's actually trying to be a superhero. He's really gritty and dark and violent, but we understand exactly what he's trying to do, and he's trying to do the right thing. I'm sorry, you can't make us hate a character who hunts down a pedophile. That's his first big mission. You're going to have a hard time making us hate that character.
Bother.
Yeah, so that and Dark Knight Returns didn't really have the best impact on comics.
No.
Yeah.
It's not so much on the author's fault on that one. It's
Yeah,
more of
I
everybody
feel
trying to
like it's
copy
more just the people trying to imitate those works.
But they don't have the talent to replicate it properly.
Yeah,
or the intelligence to even understand what they were all even about.
They just saw a dark superhero and were like, I'll do that.
What if Batman killed people?
What if Superman was either sad or evil?
Didn't Batman? I think Batman killed someone already back in the 70s, at least. Actually, not
There's been a
mention.
number. Of
He
things.
killed during the early Golden Age stuff before Robin was introduced.
Like in the early 30s. I know that in the late 30s. I'm sorry.
Yeah, late 30s. Yeah, in the early Golden Age stuff.
Someone died. I don't think Batman actually killed him in that strip, but he didn't. But it was kind of an accident, but kind of not.
He was fine. Like early Golden Age Batman did use guns.
It took a while for them to find footing with
Yeah,
the
like it
character.
took
And then there's also,
maybe 41. Maybe sometime after Robin was introduced for them to like decide to just not do that.
Yeah, it was always a teeny tiny bit dark, I guess. But yeah, but then back in at some point in the 70s, they had him start shooting people again.
I think it's because the 70s was sort of when they were starting to make comics a bit darker. Like didn't go all the way yet until Watchmen, but it was like when they were starting to sort of make comics a bit darker, more gritty.
Yeah, I definitely remember noticing it at the time.
All right, Don, you going next?
yes, it's your turn next.
Yep, it is indeed his turn.
All right, my turn. I'm going to share a screen on this one, since now I know we can do that. 500 years under a mountain. 500 dreams under a mountain. Time is incoherent, for all that he might try. The great sage cannot fully comprehend it. Do believe that he has tried, and had 500 years in which to do so. That which is outside of time is an existential horror, beyond all consideration, not to be mentioned now. Time is incoherent, and to struggle within it is to suffer. But this is not necessary. The great sage has been under a mountain for years he knew not, as he did not count the days nor hours. His head sticks out of a crack in a rock, and his hands flop out on either side of his head, utterly useless in any way for scratching his nose. He once managed to get his fingers around a root which could bridge that synapse between his tortuously functionless hands and the torturous dancing of Monkey's nose. He does not know how long it lasted, but that first moment of satisfaction after a handful of centuries was, he remembers now fondly, the highlight of his incarceration. No matter how he is begged, the tutelary god assigned to quench his thirst with molten copper and beat back his hunger by feeding him iron pellets, will not lower himself to scratching his nose for him. The great sage comforts himself with the knowledge that someone else scratching an itch will never be as satisfying as somehow scratching it yourself. Scratching his nose is a memory more treasured to him than the fear he imagines, having been in the eyes of the Jade Emperor, when the great sage, who had once been merely the handsome Monkey King, and before that simply the Stone Monkey, had been on the verge of dethroning him and ruling over heaven and the three worlds himself. He had thought that imagined look of fear would stay his greatest joy, but no. It was when he succeeded in scratching his nose. The memory is one which satisfies and tortures him as though the two things were the same thing. The memory of how Sun Gong, of all people, came to be trapped under a mountain, of all places. Heaven has insulted him, and he has beaten every fighter it has thrown at him. He is the most powerful being in the universe. Nothing could have stopped him from taking that throne. Whoever sits on the throne rules the kingdom. His lack of wisdom leads him to believe. The perspective of the time bound is like that of a tear in a thread on a sheet of cloth. The great sage has no concept of those threads crisscrossing his own, no way to comprehend the fullness that underlies the symbols, which are all that he can see. He mistakes the metaphors that his mind throws up for the reality that lies beyond them, beyond time. He has no perspective but his own, and he is a single point on a one-dimensional line. To be truly immortal, he must learn to look beyond time into reality. To be truly aware, he must learn to see beyond himself. To be wise, he must learn to see beyond his emotions. And to be free, he must learn to see me. Time is a surface tension on an ocean of chaos. Time is the thing that spins yin and yang together into the threads you use to weave your universe. You cannot see time. And what you see as you is just a thread. The universe begins in the messy swirl of twisting yarn that you weave into meaningful shapes. And you are in essence what I am, defining and dividing this from that and here from there, making a difference between the wanted and the unwanted, the joyous and the miserable, the agony and the ecstasy that is the wheel on which these threads are spun. And you do it as a function of existing. You can do nothing else. The great sage is not from your world, but he is locked there beneath the mountain of the five elements, just the same. He's from another layer of the cloth from you, so to speak. To explain in a more concrete and less precise way, he is from another continent. There are 4 continents on this imaginary map for you to picture. Yours is shaped like a triangle to the south of the center, with 3 equal dimensions. There are vast oceans of nothingness separating you from the crescent-shaped eastern mass, where this poor fellow trapped under the mountain is born. Now, under the 5-element mountains, in your world, he lives and relives his whole life, blaming and shaming, in turn, each stitch that time has left in his memory. The rules are different in his home, as you might have expected from its shape. The experience of being there is essentially different in just the way that a triangle differs from a crescent. In his world, a monkey can hatch from a stone egg. His eyes can flash up at heaven, bright enough that the Jade Emperor himself might take notice. Best to start from the beginning. Imaginary, though, a beginning might be when existence sits before you like a 12-dimensional sphere. But I tell you about this sage monkey because you have something to learn from him. It may not be apparent at first, but please believe me that just as your existence consists of the creation of patterns from the spooling chaos that time feeds you, mine consists of bringing an end to suffering. Though not, I suppose, to pain. In its way, pain can cure suffering, just as a prison can be liberating. I think I'll do up to the end of number 4. 1. Did this begin? When, where, what, how, why? The great sage equaling heaven trapped below a mountain. All under heaven is grief. 2. If the results are not to your liking, change the methods. The Buddha's trickery. 3. I cannot stop being the great sage. Can I outthink the Buddha? Where even did I begin to think? 4. Dreams of the Emperor. At the time of the Stone Monkey's birth, the Jade Emperor has already ruled the universe for more than the length of time that makes any attempt to measure it practically meaningless. Where does the atmosphere of Earth end? The Jade Emperor sits on his throne, thralling to the music of the spheres that spin between the hands of juggling nymphs. They're acting out the birth of the universe in a way that would be very difficult to render to the mind of a mere mortal. These spheres show colors that human eyes cannot see, shades of what might be called sentience, or perhaps the elements personified. A human might look and see nothing, or a human might look and lose all grasp on those precious thin strings that are sanity. It is evening in heaven. His wrist rests on the arm of his throne, fingers holding a chalice of some precious material gifted to him by some high being or other. He does not remember, but for what it is worth, it was the Dragon King of the East Seas' sister's nephew by marriage, who had gifted it in hopes of having some claim to notoriety beyond that. It had cost him dearly. This is just another evening of entertainment prepared for the Jade Emperor, Yu Huangdi, by the ranks of gods beneath him. He doesn't see them as either higher or lower, but according to the position that he holds, all must be treated according to the position that they hold. It would not be quite correct to say that this bores him, but it certainly holds no pleasure for him. The most beautiful nymphs with their most beautiful spheres, and everyone in the audience has a chair assigned. Pleasure in existence is a distant memory. It's a distant memory for the Jade Emperor. It is not proper, but he brings his attention back to the chalice anyway. Some sort of sky blue jade, most rare. It is translucent like glass, even rarer. These are just thoughts like static electricity in his mind, hopping around. He feels cloudy in all of this revelry. It gets old to him. What interests him is the elixir within, said to grant however many extra years of life, as though he'd not had enough tacked onto the end of his span already. The taste is a dragon that any earthly drinker would chase in every bottle until the end of days. But it is commonplace to Yu Hong. What interests him is the heavenly brewer, Lao Tzu, he realizes. The old boy, too smart to let himself get bogged down in a court with all of these white gold chains and marks of rank, lives somewhere far away, and only comes to court when he must. Rather, not when he must, but when he feels. When did the Jade Emperor last see him? As this gift proclaims, he will soon. His eyes close, which really they ought not to do, according to the customs of court. And in just the moment that they close, the weather around the palace foments into a storm, thunder drowning out the music of the entertainment. The Jade Emperor follows in his mind the great bolt of lightning, the thunder of which breaks his tedium for a moment, something which has not happened in ages. It finds its mark on a great boulder, shattering it into the shape of a little stone monkey. Monkey opens his eyes, and 2 yellow laser beams shine right back at the Emperor. Their eyes meet across the divide of space in that inarticulate substance between space and time, best described as an ocean. He mentally commands the gods, 1,000-mile eye and wind accompanying ear to watch this creature. He cannot mistake that this is a birth of great significance. Blood from a stone is rare enough, but flesh? This should be interesting. The words form vaguely in his mind, and he puts himself back to his proper position. He takes no time to consider that he may have given life to this monkey. He has seen stranger births in his tenure. He had unfocused on the procedures of his court for but a breath, but it is enough. It is enough to clear his mind. He takes a sip from the goblet that Lao Tzu sent and shows appreciation in the proper way. He has delegated the matter of the monkey, and it would be unseemly for him to give it further thought. He has, as you would say, bigger fish to fry. His cook stew, at any rate, and he must show proper appreciation to the feast now being brought out. As he eats, he experiences the lives of these fish, which had been raised in the placid rainbow lakes of planet Venus. They are tangible in the ways that songs in their entirety might be, or the curls of heat from the pavement on a hot day, or a constellation on a clear night. But lest it be unclear, this is the most heaven knows of monkey. All right. Okay, that's the most recent version of my Monkey King epic. How's it look to you guys?
Reject modernity, return to monkey.
Well, that's more or less the theme, yeah. Well, actually, that's literally what's going on with the Jade Emperor. Return to monk.
Yeah, I thought it was fine. The only odd thing was 2 laser beams. That was an odd phrasing since
2 beams of light, perhaps?
Yeah. Since laser is purely
changes
modern.
to 2 beams of light. Because saying laser beam, it's so modern in comparison to everything else. You were from the style, it definitely jerked me out of the moment. Just
okay, let's fix it. 2 yellow beams of light shine back at the Emperor.
Yeah, that sounds a lot better. Yeah.
Yeah, the idea was like it literally is just like it is a laser, but yeah, we don't have that word.
Yeah, that's a purely modern word. I think it's like what 20th, at the very earliest 18th century, 20th century, possibly later.
Yeah, and I think it's also an acronym originally, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm.
I think it was originally an acronym.
All right, but how do you guys think of like the sort of the description of what heaven looks like and like the dimensional stuff? Like, is that digestible?
I would say yes.
He's from a crescent instead of a triangle, and it's like, how does that mean? What?
That makes sense.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm psyched to keep going with this then for the next times because it, like, I don't know, like I was like not in my normal state of consciousness, and I just kind of like cut everything together, and then I read this the other night. I was like, whoa, this is actually pretty good. Like, this works. All right, time to hear about more dragon sex.
Oh, is this the one with that stuff?
No, I don't have dragon. No, I was talking about Dunn. It's his turn. I don't think anybody else has anything particular to add.
No, I mean, I think I remember from last week that something interesting. There was something very interesting happened.
The main thing is the part 2 is finished, and now we're moving into the final part of the book. One second.
Nice.
As I recall, someone's dragon died, and for some reason that was a turn on. Sorry.
I had to unmute so you could hear me laugh. That's funny.
Yeah, I just mistimed things. Alrighty. So, let me see. So this is a bit of time. So there's been a bit of a time jump from the. Basically, it's been about 9 years since the last part, and now a lot of the plans that have been set in place for during the last few years are now going to be put into practice. The canal is finished. The Shard and Arian are married, and Persephone has been preparing for war for about 9 years, and now we're going to see how that shakes out.
And she's Bale's daughter, right?
Yep, that is correct.
Pretty good.
Yep. Chapter 21, What the Years Have Wrought. 9 years later. Shard clasped his hands as he sailed down the canal to the capital. The recent success of the first canal had allowed them to rapidly expand throughout the kingdoms, bringing water and other goods down the man-made rivers to even as far as Parthia. He'd been overseeing the completion of the canal in Althea, which had been the easiest of the canals to construct aside from Parthia. The main problem with that one had been getting enough water to flow down it. Now that he'd had enough opportunity to compare, Shard had to admit that if he were given the choice between canals and a dragon, he would prefer to have a dragon ferry him from place to place. However, the canals did give him a sense of pride in that while Arian had formulated the plans and ideas, he had been the one to build the dream. Sighing, he leaned against the mast and looked up at the stars. His son Roman sat next to him, clearly imitating Shard's posture and bearing and managing a fair approximation for a 9-year-old. He did look more like Shard than his mother, but he had inherited his mother's eyes. What do you think, son? Shard asked, put a gloved hand on his son's shoulder. Felt strangely proud of this young human. He hadn't had the chance to distinguish himself in any particular fashion, but he was a good student and had applied to himself to many kinds of learning, mostly the sciences, but considering that science had provided Althea with an impressive amount of wealth, Shard did not begrudge his son's interests. No, it was mainly the fact that he was Shard's creation. Living, breathing human with thoughts, feelings, dreams, and aspirations. That was strangely marvelous. Roman smiled and placed his bare hand on Shard's gloved one. I'm excited, Father. It feels like forever since we've been in the capital. Since you have, at least. Shard allowed himself a slight chuckle. Only Irini had managed to make Shard laugh as regularly as Roman did. The boy brought up more dormant qualities in Shard, qualities he often had to suppress. It is a strange thing that I should feel this way due to the mere existence of one solitary being, Shard thought, eyes flicking toward the capital in the distance. He wondered absently if Natriana were visiting again. She seemed eager to meet with him for some reason, though every time he'd read one of her summons, he'd politely decline the message. And thankfully she'd never come down to the capital. Perhaps now was the time to finally get his revenge. He flexed his hand, considering how it would feel to remove that particular thorn from his side. What do you think the Dragonlord wants from you this time, Father? Roman asked, sliding his hands into his pockets. She mentioned something important, possibly in regards to those rumors of a dragon rider in the far north and old Cardalin. What do you think it's true, Father? That was definitely something Roman had gained from his mother. Insatiable curiosity. A dragon rider up north, hiding out where Ellenstar the Vile made his lair? It makes for a good story, son. Shard made his tone deliberately firm. It may seem exciting, but you should remember that you must distrust anything that your eyes do not see themselves. Elves, and only half of that out. What half is that? Shard asked. The boy asked, now diverted to another line of thought entirely. You must discover that for yourself with practice. Shard assumed the tone that he knew his son preferred while being instructed. Firm, confident, but still casual rather than arrogant or lecturing. Many people will think that they'll tell you what they think they want you to hear, what they want you to hear. Always examine what they say to you as well as who is saying it to you. Roman nodded thoughtfully. I think I understand, Father, he said. Then repeat it back to me, in your own words. Shard had found that when his son verbalized instruction back, especially in his own words, that he generally internalized it better. The boy had a remarkable memory and was able to give him a recital of just about anything that he'd read or heard within the past hour, word for word, sometimes longer, depending on how much the boy liked it. Roman for a moment, then nodded. I need to learn how to tell how other people are trying to get me to do what they want, he said, sounding fairly confident in his answer. And I can do that by thinking about who they are and what they want. Very good. Shard nodded and patted his son's shoulder affectionately. You'll make a fine lord one day. Maybe. Roman didn't seem so convinced. I mostly wanted to do some experiments with blasting fire. I think that I can make weapons out of it. I just need to get some dragons. What are some of your ideas for blasting fire weapons? Shard asked. Roman raised a finger and looked around the deck until he found a small chunk of wood and a long rope. Here, Father, he said eagerly. Let me show you with this. Tilting his head, Shard watched as his son placed the rope on a barrel, then the small ball. So, here's how it works, Roman said eagerly. Master Whitley showed me this. We had an experiment using a rock, and we found something really interesting. We placed a jammer rock inside the bored-out stone. The rock was pushed out of the hole so fast it smashed through the metal. Really? Shard asked, now unabashedly interested. Yeah, we started doing it with metal, but the ones we crafted were ruined in the explosion, so we're going to have to figure out how to make it not explode. Roman grinned. So if it's metal like your sword, we'll be able to make something that can do some real damage in battle. I have made something that will last, Shard thought, as his son continued to explain his theories. The boy had exceptional promise, after all. Persephone walked out into the practice yards, wearing her black and silver armor to cheers and calls of approval from the stands. Grinning, she waved to the assembled crowd, and nodded to Gagul. Her orc foster mother smirked at her, then leaned her large cleaver-like sword against her shoulder. Rolling her own shoulders, Persephone pulled her helmet onto her head, then adjusted her gauntlet. When she was finished adjusting her gauntlets, Persephone drew her own sword and advanced toward the Gagul. The massive she-orc was still taller than her, but Persephone was only a few inches shorter now rather than half as tall. Ready? Gagul asked, hefting her own weapon. Persephone felt the cord of muscles in her arm tighten as the orc advanced toward her, sword up with the pommel next to her sharp ears. Ready. Persephone put her sword forward, the red haze starting to fuzz around the corner of her eyes. Have to control it, Persephone thought as Gagul charged, slashing wildly at her. Grunting, Persephone shifted to the side, letting her enemy's blade pass by her, then stabbed forward. Surprisingly dexterous, spider size, Gagul leaped aside and swatted Persephone's blade aside. Snarling, Persephone let a little bit of the rage cover her vision as she struck over and over, trying to get around her enemy's blade. The crowd of orcs and humans gathered to watch cheered and yelled wildly as they clashed over and over, the two combatants matching each other in strength and skill. Persephone had pushed herself hard to develop her body, working her muscles hard and long enough to match even the middling orcs. The larger ones were still stronger than she was, but Gagul wasn't one of the larger orcs. Growling, Persephone executed a carefully placed parry and then riposte, only to be deflected by Gagul, who attempted to get in a strike on her legs. Skipping backward, Persephone reset her stats, sliding her foot back to provide extra balance as Gagul reset herself before moving forward and attacking. Had to wear out, Persephone thought as she kept moving backward, putting most of the wear on her legs and feet as Gagul slashed and hacked at her. Finally, Gagul overextended, allowing Persephone to knock her blade aside and slam her shoulder into her teacher's side, throwing her off balance. However, Gagul had the presence of mind to strike out with her fist. Persephone instinctively flinched aside, but Gagul still landed a strike on her helmeted head, throwing her backward. Now her vision turned completely red. Screaming, Persephone righted herself, then went on the attack, furiously smashing her enemy's weapon aside. As she did, the orcs began chanting, "Gorjad Barsnul! Gorjad Barsnul! Gorjad Barsnul!" pounding their fists against their chest or pounding on the railings. Gagul tried to block the attacks, but the rage was on Persephone. Every time the orcs raised her sword, Persephone knocked it aside and tried to strike her enemy's body. With a grunt, Gagul let Persephone bull past her, then tried to slash at her exposed back. Since your enemy's plan, Persephone spun and deflected the attack, then spun her own fist in Gagul's face. The orc flinched, then grabbed Persephone's shoulder and slashed at her head. Rather than pulling away, Persephone pushed off with her legs and tackled her enemy, slamming her shoulder into the orc's chest. Gagul was thrown to the ground, and dust flying up around her. Snarling, Persephone put her sword to Gagul's face. "I win." Spitting blood out of her mouth, Gagul grinned and dropped her blade. "Well done," she whispered. Blinking her eyes to clear the red haze from her vision, Persephone pushed herself to her feet, then pulled the orc up. The crowd erupted in cheers of adulation, the orcs drowning the humans out with cries of "Gorjad Barsnul!" peppered throughout. "They love you." Gagul placed her hand on Persephone's shoulder and squeezed it. Breathing heavily, Persephone chuckled and sheathed her sword. "Well, I'll need it when we go to war." Gagul leaned on her blade. "Do you think that we'll march soon?" "There are things I need to do first." First, Persephone let out a long breath. "We need to let our allies know before we move out." "Shard!" Irene smiled as Shard entered her room and gave her a long hug. "It's good to see you. I wish I could be in Althea for the construction, but managing the others has been so busy that I haven't been able to get away from all the paperwork." "Soon enough, it'll be finished." Shard pulled his glove off and stroked her face, a smile forming on his lips. "Once it's done, we'll have all the time we want." "Do you still need to speak with my sister?" Ernie asked, absently stroking his arm. "I know you came to see me first, but I don't want to keep you. I just came to visit." Shard kissed her cheek. "How is she?" "She's..." Irene paused. "You'll see. I can't really do it justice other than saying she's changed for the worse as far as the whole paranoia situation is concerned." With that warning in mind, Shard waited outside the throne room for it with a measure of apprehension. He hadn't seen Chimera in over a year, and her mental state had been deteriorating quite a bit before that. There have been rumors that she made alterations to the throne room into the past year, which also might be concerned. Casually, he motioned to the door guards, signaling them to open the doors for him. The 4 orcs on duty quickly opened the doors to reveal what's beyond. Shard's eyebrows rose as he saw what Chimera had done. The throne room was indeed greatly changed. Huge stone channels had been raised to line the room, flames running down the waist-high stones like twisting demonic flowers. The head of the dragon that had been slain on the bow of the canal now hung from the rafters of the throne room above the throne, along with the skulls of Thanatos and Vagar they brought from the dragon crypts. The skulls gazed down at him from between the columns like specters of their ancient glory, one seeming made of blue crystal and the other from obsidian. A new dais had been constructed in the rear of the throne room, curved spikes running down the corners of the steps to the top where sat the massive obsidian throne, a jagged, rough-hewn thing that had been carved from a single massive block of the black glass, a pair of dragons carved into the armrest and forming the back of the seat. A new balcony had been constructed to accommodate Meraxia lounging outside, tail wrapped around herself as she sunbathed like a cat. Chimera had a black Usipa crown on her head, dark fire resting against the arm of her chair, bare blade reflecting the fire on the long channels. Not surprisingly, her single eye still held the same insanity that it often had of late. However, she still lounged as if she were completely relaxed, giving off the impression of a silver lioness surveying her domain. When he entered, the remaining purple eye lit up with genuine joy as she sat up. "Shard, I'm so glad you've returned." She walked down the stairs, picking up Darkfire and sheathing it. "Is the canal in Althea finished?" "It is complete," Shard nodded, accepting her hug with as much dignity as he could. He hated being touched, especially by someone he trusted as little as Chimera, but he endured it with as good grace as possible. Chimera released him and clasped him on the shoulder, which was still more contact than he wanted, but he didn't push her off. "You're the only one that I can trust in this whole damn kingdom to do his job." "No, I'm the only one in this kingdom who knows how to aim you." Shard pasted on a smile. "I am pleased that you are satisfied with my efforts on your behalf." He nodded respectfully to her, then clasped his hands behind his back. "Now, what did you want to discuss with me so urgently?" "News has reached me of a new dragon rider in the far north in Cardolan." Mara's eye turned paranoid. "I want you to investigate it thoroughly." "I've already investigated that particular rumor, Chimera," Shard said calmly. "It is just a rumor. There is no truth behind it." "I know he's out there!" Chimera grabbed his shoulder and hissed in his face. "Bale is out there, taunting me with his very existence." She glared around the room as if spies were watching him. "They're hiding from me. I know it. They want him to take the throne. My throne. The throne I won." "No, the throne I won for you and have been holding for you these 10 years. Shard tilted his head as if to pretend that he was sympathetic to his liege's paranoid rants. "The throne I will take from you soon." "Bale was lost in that storm you described," he said calmly. "It would have destroyed the ships he took with him. If he found his way to any ports, we'd have heard of Catastros, Meles, and Orpheus by now." "They're suppressing the rumors!" Chimera hissed. "He's out there, scheming to desert me. He's at the bottom of the ocean and never coming back." "I will search again," Shard nodded. "But if he's out there, I will find where he is." "I know there are other traitors out there, Shard," she whispered. "Numenor, Satharis, Ulbar. We should have them all burned for their treachery." "That would lead to war, a war we would not have won." Shard maintained a mild tone. "You were wise to exercise restraint. I was wise to stabilize the kingdom in your madness." "Now I have treasonous weeds trying to strangle my rule," she countered, not knowing that she was going in circles. It seemed she slipped even deeper into madness since he'd left. "Something's out there, Shard. Someone out there is trying to take my throne from me." "Calm yourself, Highness." Shard steeled himself and placed his hand on her shoulder. If she decided to attack him, he could move the other to his sword. "You have the support of Althea, Parthia, and Harag. Numenor and Cathars won't do anything with child rulers at their head. And in the end, your rule is supreme. You have 3 dragons. One of them is unmatched by any living creature on this earth. You have a tenuous reign held together by canals and my efforts. Once the ladder is gone, you will fall. Meraxia rose up and purred, then started scratching her claws against the stones. If anyone tries to challenge you, they will have me to deal with. She bared her long fangs in a wide grin, then settled her head on her wing claws. Where do you think I should search to find these traitors? Shard asked. Which kingdoms have given you cause to believe that they are less than loyal? Chimera's lips peeled back from her lips in a smile. You always were good at finding traitors, Shard, she said mildly. I would have been killed by those traitors you found for me. Lord Araman, one of my own dragon riders, plotting against me. That would have been bad and a catastrophe. That had been a calculated move on Shard's part. That man had been getting too brazen with it in his covert raids into Shard's territory, and he'd been trying to steal. Likely he'd been trying to steal all the formula for blasting fire. Now he was dead, and his dragon along with him. Shard would have preferred that his dragon, at Araman's dragon, this dragon could bond with someone who would be able to serve his needs, but better the beast was dead than going to one of Chimera's children. He had to ensure that the Thane of Chimera's reign left on the Obsidian throne would preclude any of her children, even Dany or Telemara. They might be deserving Dany more than Telemara, but Shard wanted Irene to sit the throne. Telemara had no stomach for anything other than the most mundane of feminine pursuits and didn't have the spine to do what needed to be done. I have been successful so far in discovering the traitors to the crown, at his head. I've been successful in disposing of my enemies. I take great pride in securing the rule of one I serve. I also take great pride in aiming a paranoid madwoman at carefully selected targets. Indeed, Chimera put her hand on his shoulder. Together, we will ensure that I reign as long as my mother did. No, you will reign for as long as I allow you to. Shard smiled and allowed her to lead him out of the throne room. I live to serve me. And that's where we'll conclude it for today.
Pretty good.
Tense.
Yeah, that was good.
Like that. That was a good closing line.
Yeah, that was some
Serve
pretty stuff done.
Thank you. Thank you. Any specifics on what you guys enjoyed?
I guess I enjoyed a lot of the dialogue and writing style.
Yeah, your characterization with dialogue is really good.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it is kind of fun to write crazy, cray people.
Was that the cray cray?
Yeah, since Chimera's basic, in some ways, she's kind of a hybrid of the Mad King and Maegor.
I'm a little concerned that Shard is reproduced.
Shard is what?
Reproduced.
Reproduced?
Yes, I'm a little concerned.
Why? Because he's got a little. You think that his kid's going to be a little psychopath or something?
Poor kid.
Yeah, it does seem like he's not the worst dad. He's just a dad who has a very particular view of the world that may or may not be accurate.
I think we're going to have to call social services.
Yeah, at least his mom is good. His mom's not bad.
That's good.
Yeah.
There's one bit that sounded a little awkward. What was it? Shamira's eye turned paranoid. For some reason, that sounded weird.
Maybe I should change it to expression, since I just said that because she only has a single eye.
Yeah, maybe.
It's kind of weird to write kind of expressions with somebody who doesn't have an expression, or who doesn't have both of their eyes.
Oh, you can still have an expression though, because it's the entire face.
Yeah.
And I like the voice that you give her too. There's still traitors out there, Shad. They're all over. They're in every corner.
Now you just sound like the love child of Smeagol and Grima Wormtongue.
I think the rats in here are in the pay of the enemy.
I gotta unfortunately go.
Alrighty. I gotta cut this. Alright. Any other thoughts before we conclude?
Oh, no. All right. It was a good meeting, everybody.
Yep, this was pretty productive. See you guys next time.
See you.
Alrighty. Bye.
Yep.
See ya.
Bye-bye.